I don't have the rights to the Lord of the Rings song, so it's what you get. Welcome back to Get This Game, where we are all about the board gaming goodness. I'm Jake, and hey, I'm back and I got married. It was amazing. It was everything we had hoped it would be. And because of that, I thought this was the perfect time to talk about a brand new game that is about rings as well. Well, a lot more than that. This is the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth. Now, it's going to be hard to talk about this game without mentioning its predecessor, because designed by Bruno Catala and Antoine Bauza, with art by Vincent Dutrait, Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth is actually a re-implementation and a bit of a refresh from another very popular two-player only game, which is Seven Wonders Duel. In and of itself, it was also a re-implementation from Seven Wonders, but the question really becomes, does that really popular game and sound system need to be coming out with a new kind of refreshed version? Well, that's the question we're going to try and answer today. We'll talk a little bit about how Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth works, how it kind of differentiates and separates itself from Seven Wonders Duel, and whether or not it's a good thing and something for you to consider adding to your shelf. We're going to get into all those kind of differences and changes along the way. If you do like board game content, if you do like talking about board games, discussing them, I invite you to consider subscribing to Get This Game, where we try to post at least once a week about games or other roundups. You can also follow me on TikTok or Instagram at Get This Game and Get This Board Game, respectively. And please do leave a comment once you kind of get a sense of how the game works. Is this something that you yourself would consider getting? Are you a Lord of the Rings fan? Do you prefer just sticking to Seven Wonders Duel? We're going to talk about all of these differences and the changes and whether this needs to exist in the first place. So let's get right into it, talking a little bit about how the game works. In Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth, one of you will play as the Fellowship of the Ring, and the other will play as Sauron's forces, taking turns drafting cards from a kind of shared display to add to your own personal tableau. Now, that kind of card drafting system is really what made Seven Wonders Duel innovative and really kind of changed the game in terms of two-player drafting systems. In that basically you have a series of rows of cards in front of you, and you will take turns picking one of the cards that are available. Obviously, as certain cards are taken from the earlier rows, it opens up and frees up cards that are no longer covered in rows behind them. And that opens up the opportunity for a player to then take that card, moving your way along the pyramid until all of them have been taken. You're going to set and reset for rounds 2 and 3, and then hopefully along the way you're going to try and meet one of the game's win conditions. Now that brings us to the first kind of difference between Seven Wonders Duel and the new Lord of the Rings version, which is they have completely gotten rid of all of the points in this system. In Seven Wonders Duel, typically a lot of the games would kind of end with who had the highest score, because certain cards would have different values of points printed on them, and there's some other ways to kind of cascade points up. Well, in Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth, they get rid of all of that, and you are left instead with trying to win based on one of 3 win conditions. The first being making your way from one end to the other on the quest for the ring track. There's this really cool kind of double layered system where you have Frodo and Sam at one end of the track and the ring race at the other end. And there are certain cards that you'll be able to draft along the way that basically let you advance along that track. If Sam and Frodo get to the Mount Doom space by the end, before the end of the game, then hey, guess what? The Fellowship wins. But if the ring race actually catch up to them first, well, then the bad guys win. Another way that you're going to be able to win this game is by basically taking over military control of Middle-earth itself. You have this little sideboard, which is again another kind of new change to the duel system here, where you have all of the major kind of districts and regions of Middle-earth. And again, certain cards are going to be kind of military focused, and they're going to allow you to either place out troops onto the different regions of the map, or even move them around, creating conflicts if there are 2 opposing armies that meet. If anyone at any given point has at least one troop or a presence in all 7 regions of that map, then again, that side is going to automatically win. The final way that you're going to win is very similar to the science victory that was found in Seven Wonders Duel and Seven Wonders. And that is basically certain cards are going to allow you to gain favor and kind of gain alliances with one of the 6 different races of Middle-earth. There are elves, humans, dwarves, even Ents, etc. And basically, it's a bit of a set collection exercise. Not only are you going to be able to kind of grab cards that let you take a token of a given race, but if you ever collect 2 of them at any given time, you're going to get the chance to basically look at them and choose a kind of really beneficial bonus that is printed on the back of them that gets you further along in the game. It's a bit of a longer term play, and if you're going to go for gaining the alliance of all 6 races, then you're going to have to pretty much just kind of focus in on that, or else you're just going to fall behind and lose to one of the other cons. But again, it is going to be another way that you can potentially win if you do collect at least 1 token from each of the 7 regions and races. The other big change is the introduction of landmarks. You see, there's no real core sort of wonder system like there was in 7 Wonders Duel. Normally, you would have a kind of wonder board in front of you, and if you were contributing different aspects to it, you would basically be able to gain little advantages along the way as you were drafting cards. Here, basically on your turn, if you're not taking a card from the array in the center, then you can try and go for one of the kind of bigger landmarks that are going to, again, give you a really big bonus, potentially. Basically, when that happens, you have to pay a lot more resources for it. They are pretty expensive, but if you do, you're able to grab them, take the benefit printed on them, and then you're also going to be able to place a fortress permanently into one of the 7 regions on the board. Again, fortresses count as presence in that region and on that map, so it's another way to kind of work you towards getting that military kind of area majority victory. But other than that, I mean, that is pretty much the game. It is very similar to the 7 Wonders Duel system. You're going back and forth drafting cards, using some resources printed on cards that you grab to make it easier to pay for and buy other ones down the line, trading in some coins, and again, moving up that quest for the ring track, building presence with your different armies into the regions of Middle Earth, and maybe gaining some favor with some of the different races. So first off, thanks to Repos Productions and Asmodee Canada for providing me a copy of the game for review. Just a reminder on how my scoring system works. The Get This Game scale is basically broken out into 3 categories that are all weighted a bit differently. We rank based on gameplay and design, presentation, which is basically how the game looks and is prepared in the box, as well as the fun factor, just how my personal experience of the game kind of weighed into my overall enjoyment of it, as well as other considerations and factors like replayability, player interaction, and all of the kind of aha good stuff moments that a game can pack in. We always rank gameplay and design a little bit higher and presentation a little bit lower because, as always, a game can look good but not necessarily play good, and it's much more important that the game plays well in the end. So let's get right into the score. Starting off with gameplay and design, this is going to get a 9 out of 10 for me. In terms of innovation, I should flag here, obviously, again, we've been talking a lot about 7 Wonders Duel. At its core, Lord of the Rings Duel from Middle Earth really does replicate that system, but it's also a really, really good system. Being able to find a way for 2 players to engagingly activate and be able to draft cards back and forth from one another, they have really found a great system with that sort of pyramid style array in front of them that makes this so worthwhile. You do get those moments where you can kind of plan ahead, look ahead to maybe a card that you want in a further up row that you know you can't access now, but you're kind of thinking as you're making those more tactical moves about setting yourself up to gain those really important cards later on. What I also like about here is all the extra stuff that the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth adds to that 7 Wonder system just makes it better. It improves it and iterates on it. It doesn't take away from the overall experience. I think at the top of the list for me is the fact that they've completely removed points from the game. I think that is so good and really speaks to just being able to thematically get yourself into the headspace of the Lord of the Rings. Frankly, you don't get to the end of the 3rd Lord of the Rings movie or the 3rd Lord of the Rings book and say, okay, whoever had the most points ended up winning the whole thing. I love the fact that you have to reach and work towards one of those win cons in the game world to actually make it make sense in the real world when you're playing things. Yeah, you want to be focusing and making sure you're staying ahead of the ring wraiths if you're the Fellowship on that quest for the ring track. It makes sense that you might be wanting to just expand out your army to the farthest corners of Middle Earth to be able to win in the end. It says so much about being able to actually kind of work towards that goal and that being how you win compared to just kind of, you know, going about your business and getting a card maybe just because it scores you points. I'm really a big fan of that. It's also worth noting the theme here is also pretty strong and a really good implementation considering this is such an abstract kind of style of game in it of itself. All of the different races that you're going to be earning favor for, they have different abilities and they all kind of make a lot of sense based on what that race is. So I really liked that. Same goes for the landmarks. Mordor is obviously all about death and destruction and kind of decay. So if you do manage to take the Mordor or Khazad-dûm landmark, then you're actually going to be able to take a card from the discard pile and play it for free. There's some nice kind of notes of theme there. And just overall, the different kind of cards that you're picking up along the way, all of it kind of breathes that life of Lord of the Rings and the world as you're kind of telling your own story again through this abstract way. Would also call out that, you know, this is, I think, a price MSRP wise that is $35. The amount of quality and game that you get in this box is really a testament to just how much they were able to pack in and do such a good job on. So again, with all that in mind, it is iterative, obviously, on a core system, but everything that gets added in here just makes the game overall better and changed. So again, it's going to be a 9 out of 10 on the gameplay scale. Presentation, I'm calling it right now. Let's just cut to the chase. This gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Obviously, I think it's pretty well known. Art is subjective, but in terms of gameplay and board game art, Vincent Dutrait is probably the best in the business, and it really rings through here. It is a different certain style of art and how the kind of Lord of the Rings world has been represented compared to previous iterations. It almost feels more like this could go hand in hand with art that could be found in like an illustrated version of the books, quite frankly. I think this could be plopped right into a kind of extended edition of the books, and it would fit right in along with that and complement it very well. On top of that, just all of the component quality deserves a shout out as well. That quest for the ring track I find so like innovative and nice and useful. Once you figure out how to kind of put it together, I was a bit confused at first, but once you do, it did such a good job that of kind of setting up a system where anytime one person on the track moves, then the other kind of comes along with it. So you're never running into an issue where you're kind of having to keep track of how far and how further away the ring wraiths are from the hobbits. It's hard to explain unless you kind of have it out in front of you, but rest assured that was something that they didn't have to necessarily go so hard on in figuring out a solution there, but it works out really, really well. The card quality is perfectly fine. It is very much similar to Seven Wonders Duel. And the insert, while you probably don't necessarily want to have it on its side for too long without having some sort of storage solution, everything does fit in very, very nicely. Everything has its space. It doesn't leave any sort of issues with respect to extra space for expansions or anything like that. So storing it and putting it away, very easy and very intuitive. Overall, the presentation is 10 out of 10 here. And finally, the fun factor is going to get, frankly, a 9 out of 10 for me. In case you haven't picked up on it by now, I am a Lord of the Rings fan, big fan of the books, big fan of the movies, and I have a real appreciation for how this system kind of combines the gameplay of a game like Seven Wonders Duel and puts it and wraps it around this gorgeous and wonderful theme in this world that so many of us love so much. I love and appreciate how each card kind of signifies and calls out a certain moment from the books or movies. Being able to say, I get to take over, you know, Minas Tirith, and that's my landmark now, or I get to take over Helm's Deep, and now I get to benefit from this with some really big bonuses. All of that comes together for, again, it being an abstract experience, a really thematic one at the same time. Other thoughts here, I think that, you know, the replayability factor is going to kind of depend on your gaming group. If you are a fan of, you know, sitting down and really mastering a game and getting to know all of the ins and outs and having some of those really intense two-way battles, then sure, you're going to enjoy that. But at the same time, once you kind of figure out the flow and the core strategy of a duel system like this, you've kind of reached all of the nooks and crannies of what it has to offer. What I'm really excited to kind of introduce this to is any new fan of Lord of the Rings or fan of board games that maybe has just kind of gotten into it and likes Lord of the Rings. Well, I'm going to break this out every single time, and I think that kind of moment of discovery and letting them kind of explore everything that it has to offer, that's going to be where eventually I get that kind of replayability and appreciation here. Other than that, I think what I also really appreciate here is that because, again, that point system is out of the mix here, you're not just trying to get cards to accumulate points. It really results in this kind of always working towards a crescendo rather than kind of getting to a certain point and kind of seeing the result already. I think one of the problems with Seven Wonders Duel is, as you're collecting points, you might get partway through the third round, look at the board state and just know, oh yeah, I have no shot of winning here. We're just kind of going to figure this out and kind of play it out just to say we did, but I already know I'm going to lose. But what is great about removing those points in Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth is you are always working up to this climax. Every single moment is eking your way closer and closer to that victory condition. And because of that, it is going to increase the excitement and the intrigue and the draw all the way up until that last turn when somebody wins. So by all means, an absolutely enjoyable experience every time I've played this. I'm looking forward to kind of showing it to other people and letting them experience it too. So that means it does get a 9 out of 10 on the fun factor. So running all of those scores through the Get This Game scale system, the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth is going to get a final score of 9 out of 10. Look, the question that I asked off the top was, does this game need to exist? I think for me, this is not only a game that does have to be out in the world, I think it's going to replace Seven Wonders Duel for me, at least for the foreseeable future. Like I said, everything that gets added to this game or tweaked based on the original system only makes it better and a more enjoyable experience for me. Combine that with the fact that it is a theme that resonates with me just that much more, then yeah, I mean, like, I don't think I would ever need to play or take out my copy of Seven Wonders Duel, knowing that I also have this on my shelf. Obviously, if this theme isn't for you, then, feel free to continue playing Seven Wonders Duel, but I at least think you should give it a try. The removal of that point system in light of instead adding in just some more win cons and ways to win without that whole scoring system, for me is the biggest thing. It makes the entire flow of the game better. It makes you feel like you're working towards something that has a little bit more meat to it. And so overall, if you are a fan of kind of two-player duelers, if you're a fan of Seven Wonders Duel, I think you at least need to try this out. And for a lot of people, I think this is going to be a game that does really, really well for them kind of rounding out the year. Going to do very well around the holiday time. And for me, I think it's an early contender, or I guess because it's November now, a late contender for the best game that I've played that has come out in 2024. So I hope you maybe took away from that some thoughts on whether or not this is going to be the right game for you. That's going to be it for Get This Game this time around. I'm Jake. Again, please consider subscribing if you liked this review. Feel free to leave a comment if you disagree with me, agree with me, whatever. I just want to see and kind of chat board games and continue to do so. And as always, thanks for playing with me.